This is the U Show podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the U Show podcast, the special edition NCAA Awards U Show podcast. I'm Chris Treft alongside Ben Gisselson. And Ben, it was another great year for the USHL, making an impact on the NCAA Division I men's hockey. A lot of big numbers, 475 total commitments. And, I mean, that's just one of the stats we're going to go over. But, as always, the NCAA, the Division I, it's just riddled with USHL alums.
It's inundated by it. It's just massive, the numbers that you see at the Division I level every year. Personally, for me, this being my third year with Des Moines in the USHL, calling games on that perspective, to get to tune into a college hockey game now, it's fun. I can sit and I can say Tri-City, Sioux Falls, Youngstown, Dubuque, Des Moines, whenever I watch a college game, because everywhere you look, from as far west you can go in college hockey to as far east as you can go, there are players that are playing for those teams that I've had the privilege of calling over the last 2 to 3 seasons. And the great part about it, too, that we're starting to see now is it's not only the numbers that you're seeing in the league, but the quality of players that you're seeing in the league, with 20 of 25 All-Americans this year being of USHL ilk. So quantity and quality for the USHL is the thing that stands out to me in Division I college hockey right now.
54 of the 60 Division I schools have commitments from USHL players, which, what are those other 6 teams doing? I'm not sure what's going on there, but that's an incredible number. Nearly 80% of the final USHL 23-man rosters are D1 committed, and you think 80%, it would be way higher at the grand scheme of things when you take those kids that are 16 that haven't committed yet, that have another year of junior, or guys that European guys that might go straight into pro hockey that were drafted. So nearly 80%, that's the exact number just right now. But the kids that haven't committed yet, they're eventually going to commit and go D1. So that's going to be even higher of a number. The 2 schools that lead the way in terms of the NCAA schools, or I shouldn't say 2, there's actually several that are tied with 19. You got Colorado College, you got UMass Amherst, you have Minnesota, all with 19 total commitments from this past season. And that's incredible considering there's usually, 23 to 25 guys on a roster.
Hard to argue that the USHL has ever been in a better place in terms of advancement than the place we're in right now. No question.
So the National Collegiate Hockey Conference leads the way amongst total numbers, which is funny because it's the conference with, it's the second. With the least amount of teams, they have the second least number of teams in their conference. But, I mean, every single team is in double digits. Colorado College leads the way with 19, and the lowest is Minnesota Duluth and Denver with 12. St. Cloud State also has 12. They might have added another one this week, so that number might actually grow. But NCHC is just, it's pretty much all USHL. You have 113 in the Big Ten, which they have way less teams than every other conference, and they still are second on that list. I mean, and even this conference with the least amount, 23, which is Atlantic Hockey, I mean, that's still a really good number. And even Arizona State, they have 18, and they're an independent. So, I mean, it's, if you look at the numbers at the graphic we posted last week, I mean, it's just incredible. And not only do you have those big numbers and all the fancy stats we've been talking about, but pretty much the 2 most prestigious awards in college hockey went to USHL alums.
Indeed they did. And out of the NCHC, University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs, Scott Perunovich, defenseman, winning the Hobey Baker Award, as well as Hockey East, University of Maine Black Bears, Jeremy Swayman, winning the Mike Richter Award for top goaltender in the NCAA. So huge awards for those young men to get, huge awards for their schools to get, and obviously from a USHL standpoint, very proud about that. And from a Richter Award scenario, 5 out of the last 7 have been USHL alumni. So clearly there's some high-end goaltending talent coming out of this league as well. And really excited today to move forward into our interviews, both with Hobey Baker winner Scott Perunovich, who also happens to be my cousin. So a fun personal note for me there. And then a guy who I'm not related to, but I really enjoyed the interview with Jeremy Swayman, goaltender from the Maine Black Bears.
Well, we've heard all the fancy stats. Now let's hear from the men themselves. Let's get to the interview first with our Hobey Baker winner, and then we'll get to our Mike Richter Award winner after that.
Hockey fans, it's my privilege now to introduce former Cedar Rapids Rough Rider defenseman, two-time national champion with the UMD Bulldogs, second-round pick of the St. Louis Blues, the most recent recipient of the Hobey Baker Award, and last and most definitely least of these accolades, my cousin, Scott Perunovich. Scott, thanks for joining us here. I understand it. You're up in the Iron Range right now in the North Country in Minnesota. Hope things are well with you, and thanks for doing this with us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. And yeah, I'm just at my cabin and kind of enjoying the nature.
It's a good place to be right now at the Hacienda Perunovich. I've never been to Side Lake. I've been to your house in Hibbing, but I'm sure Papa Jim's taking care of you guys right now in a big way.
He is taking care of us tremendously. He comes out, every day. He's got some steaks or some chicken. He's got some big thick steaks, and we're eating like kings right now.
Sounds about right. Hobey Baker Award winner Scott Perunovich, has that sunk in for you yet?
You know what? It has not actually sunk in yet. I've talked to a few people about this actually, and the first national championship I had didn't sink in for me for about a month or two. So this one might take a little bit too. I'm happy to receive this award, and hopefully it'll sink in shortly.
What was that day like? Obviously, the build-up. You're on the long list of finalists. Then you get to the short list, the final three. Take us back through that journey, not only through the entirety of the journey, getting down to the final three, and then getting your name, of course, announced by John Butchergrass on ESPN. What was that day like? Were you with family for it? What was the scenario?
I was right where I am now, and I was with my family and both my grandmas. And pretty stressful day for me throughout the day and the days prior to it. Just thinking about the award, and you want it for your family, especially too, and especially my grandmas who are always supporting me. But we found out when Bucci read it off on Sports Center, and I was with my family, and my grandmas came and gave me big hugs right away. And then I looked up and my mom was crying, and everyone, there was just so much joy and excitement in the living room. And I was just super happy to be able to spend this time with my family.
I want to go back to Hibbing, Minnesota, where you're from. Your family is roots that run deep there. Your dad was a Blue Jacket hockey player. You obviously a Blue Jacket hockey player. Your brother, a Blue Jacket hockey player. It's an area that a couple of generations ago had such fantastic state tournament type hockey. It's maybe changed a little bit for your generation, but nonetheless, growing up on the Iron Range in Minnesota and being a hockey player up there, tell the fans that are tuning into this that maybe don't know about the history up there and how prideful Northern Rangers are about playing hockey in that area are.
Yeah, it's a huge honor. A lot of these championship teams from Hibbing, in '69 or whenever it was back then, these guys are still legends. So it's to talk about these guys and all these guys from Northern Minnesota, and definitely it's the kind of dynamic of hockey has changed up here in the recent years. Is kind of dying down, but hopefully we're having some young guys in the program, especially in Hibbing, that are moving up and are going to bring Hibbing hockey back to where it was.
Scotty, I know your dad and Scott Sandel and head coach of UMD are tight. They were Hibbing-born guys together growing up there. UMD for you, was it always UMD? Was your dad always saying UMD, or were there other suitors that you had during that process? I know you committed while you were still in high school at Hibbing, so your dad was right around you a lot for that. What was that process like, choosing UMD compared to what I'm sure were some other offers, because you were a highly touted player coming out of Hibbing?
I never had any pressure from any family member or anyone really, especially my dad, who was the guy I mostly look up to for advice and everything. And he always just told me to, just go out and have fun and be happy. And, I felt that was really good advice, and UMD was the best fit to have that and also be a part of a championship program. So I was kind of best of both worlds.
So as many D1 commits go nowadays, the USHL is a starting point before college, whether you come from high school hockey or travel hockey or whatnot. But Cedar Rapids picked you up in the 9th round, which was an absolute steal. So you head down to South Iowa. What was your first impression of Cedar Rapids? Not only the town when you first got there, but the organization as a whole.
I guess the first thing I pulled up to Cedar Rapids, when I was going to start my career there was, my billet house. Those were the first people I met, Christy and Jason Vane, and man, they're like a second family to me now. Believe it or not, I didn't even know them before, but they actually have a cabin on the same lake as I do, and we didn't know that before either. Yeah, and they also both went to UMD, which is also insane. So they still come up here, and we stay in close contact. So that was the first thing. So I'm just super grateful for my billets. But then getting to the hockey aspect, Mark Carlson, does a great job with a ton of guys. And, our team struggled the year I was there, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I think it was, a great learning lesson. I learned the D zone a lot. I was playing a lot in the D zone, but it was a really good stepping stone for to get into college hockey. And I think every player before going to college hockey should spend about a full year playing the USHL to really develop them. And that's my advice to, people I've taught and people who have asked me.
So you mentioned, the Rough Riders had a rough year that year, but they've had a lot more winning seasons than losing seasons. But winning and losing aside from that 1 year, how did you see your game grow the most?
I think the way I grew the most was just becoming a pro on and off the ice. I came from a small town in northern Minnesota, hitting high school, and then I went down to Cedar Rapids, and I didn't know really the culture of what it was like. A lot of these guys who are playing have been traveling for a long time and have been living, away from home for a long time. So I remember the first game, I didn't even have a suit to wear, because I didn't even know we had to wear suits till a few days before. Everyone just already knew that, but I didn't. So I think just becoming a pro on and off the ice every single day and definitely maturing away from home was huge for me.
I'm sure you have a few more suits now, right?
Yeah, I do. I got more suits now, and I'm always prepared.
I'm going to give Jimmy some grief about that one, Scotty. I appreciate the ammo you just loaded me up with there.
Yeah, no, for sure. You can give him my time. He didn't know either, so it was a big rush to try and get a suit for me for day one.
So Mark Carlson is synonymous with USHL hockey. How do you remember him being as a coach? And do you have any great Carly stories that you can tell us?
Man, the thing I remember about him the most is just how passionate he was. The guy cared so much. We still keep in contact today. He's always checking in. Trying to think of a good Carly story I have. I don't know, man. He would just fire you up. I mean, we didn't do great, but when we won, he would just fire the whole crowd up. He was a tremendous guy.
Moving on to UMD, an illustrious career there. Best offensive defenseman in the NCHC 3 years running. 115 games played, 105 points. The list goes on and on. All-American, Hobey Baker, national championships. I imagine I know how you're going to answer this, but how do you rank all those accolades?
Oh, that's pretty tough. That one's tough. Number one is the first national championship, freshman year. Number two is second national championship, sophomore year. And then 3 is the Hobey Baker. And then everything else kind of right below that.
To look at all of these accolades on your mantle now, I like you said about the national championship, that took a while to sink in. Did you ever have any indication growing up in Hibbing when all of a sudden you started to realize, okay, I can play this game, that this is what was lying ahead for you?
I guess I never thought ahead like that. I guess that didn't really come till, maybe my junior year of high school or a little after. But I just never looked ahead because my dad he wasn't that type of guy who was always kind of looking in the future. He just always wanted me to be enjoying the moment and just kind of, living it. So I guess I never really thought that, all of this was actually a possibility because I was just, growing up having fun playing the game I love.
So it was opposite from all the parents that try to put their kids in the NHL as a peewee?
It was complete. Yeah. You see some of those parents and, I don't think they're doing any justice for their kids. And, you see that. So I think it's pretty easy. I mean, he makes it easy. I mean, I just kind of follow him. He never has, any bad things to say. He doesn't do anything. He just gives you, his input and that's it. And then he lets you make your own decision. So every decision I've ever made, I'll come to him for advice, but he'll never, tell me what to do. He just kind of helps me out. So to be able to have someone like that in your corner all the time is amazing.
Let's not give him too much credit now because we've all seen his golf swing. So let's bring him back down a little bit so when he listens to this, he doesn't walk away with his chest too puffed up there.
I'll bring him back down actually. So I bought a golf net in to put down by the lake that we can hit golf balls into. And he was terrible to start. So I was recording the swing and he was trying and get it better. So that's something we can throw at him. He's got to pick up his golf game here.
Good. Well, if anybody could miss that golf net, he would be the one who could miss it. So I'm glad to hear we're gonna end on a low note with him because he deserves it. No, I right there with you. I remember him telling the same thing to me. We were talking about you one of the times we played up at Masaba and Hibbing together, and he said that to my dad and I. He said, "Listen, I never tried to push anything on him. He always said just go out and have fun." It certainly seems like you've been having fun over these last several years, Scotty. So. Well, terrific. Scotty, thank you for this. The best to your family. Cannot wait to see you in a Blues sweater, hopefully sooner than later with all of what we've got going on, the craziness in this world right now. But hopefully you and the family are safe, and can't wait, as I said earlier, to see you in the NHL, as we all can. And I'm sure the Rough Riders family shares those same sentiments.
Thank you so much. Good talking to you, cuz.
Joining us now on the U Show podcast is a 2020 Mike Richter Award winner and University of Maine goaltender, Jeremy Swayman. Jeremy, how we doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well. You staying busy up there in Alaska?
Yeah, busy as I can. I'm pretty fortunate to be up in Alaska. There's a lot of mountains and stuff. So I've been getting outside as much as I can and staying, social distancing, follow all the protocol I can. But yeah, it's good.
So first off, congratulations on the award. It's obviously a great achievement. Not many goalies can say that they've won that award. And for you to win that, what does that mean to you? And why do you think you had so much success this year with the Black Bears?
It's a great honor to receive that award. And I know I'm joining some elite company doing so. And the goalies that came before me, it's a pretty great honor to be a part of that group now. And I truly understand the magnitude of that award and what it represents on and off the ice. So I'm going to do whatever I can every day to live up to the expectation. But again, that doesn't happen without the last 3 years with Maine Black Bears, and of course my year in junior with Sioux Falls. So a lot of credit goes to the people that helped me get there.
I'm always curious when I speak to hockey players that have gotten to the levels that you're at, high-end Division I, professional hockey on your way there. What's the journey like being from Alaska? Because you're not the first player to make the NHL from Alaska. You think about Scott Gomez and some others, but for you, what was that journey like, and how was the step-by-step process of getting to where you're at now? Take us through that as a young man at the time.
I think the journey, obviously it shows hockey's a small world. End up in Alaska all the way at Maine, and it's a really tight-knit community. But I think just all the learning lessons along the way helped me get to have success at different levels, and going through those mistakes, up and downs, really it teaches you what to expect at each level, and making sure that I take everything and learn from it. But I think this year especially, just working on certain things that I knew was important, such as my mental game and off and on ice preparation, because it's a long season at the college level, and I had a dream at a young age to play junior hockey, college hockey, and professional hockey. And I think setting goals was a big thing for me, and I knew what I needed to do to achieve them.
So was Maine on your radar before you decided to go there? Because I looked it up, and it's actually the furthest possible school away from your hometown, 4,556 miles to be exact. So you went as further as you possibly could. So what went into that decision, and did you know about Maine before they started talking to you and whatnot?
Yeah, it's a pretty funny story. Truthfully, I didn't know a lot about Maine or let alone a lot of the hockey schools in general. But, as I started getting more exposed to college hockey teams, I started to realize how prestigious the Hockey East League was and the great talent they had there. So that was definitely attractive to me. But the recruiting process for Maine was a lot different for other schools, because I think someone kind of told them that I was pretty into nature. And I really like getting outside a lot. And so our first conversation at the USHL showcase in Omaha, or it was a fall showcase, wasn't even about hockey. It was about all the great hiking trails and fishing spots around Orono. So I was hooked right away.
That's tremendous recruiting. Terrific recruiting by the Black Bear staff there. That's off the chart stuff. So kudos to the Black Bear staff on that recruiting for sure. Yeah. I want to talk, before we get to the USHL, Alaska hockey. Doing our homework here before this interview with you, saw South Anchorage High School on your list of places you played before. What can you tell us about Alaska high school hockey? Because I certainly don't know a lot about it, and I'm not sure our fans do either.
Yeah, it's a good league. I think it's definitely changed over the past 10 years, especially. We had a great Alaska community. We had obviously the Gomez era, the Joey Crab era, the Carls era. And so a lot of great Alaskan players played in that league. And, it was different because there was a competitive league, and then there was the high school league, and they intercepted each other. So we had to stop in the middle of our season for competitive hockey to play high school hockey. And so it was weird to separate from our team and then all of a sudden be playing against them in the same season. But, I think it helped me a lot because, it worked on a mental game. It's just really focused on staying in the moment and focusing where my 2 feet are. And I can't be focused on, a competitive team when I'm playing high school hockey for, my school. So I think that was a big step for me in the right direction, and just making sure that I'm focused, where I'm playing at that time.
On your way to Sioux Falls, you had a pit stop with Pikes Peak in Colorado, a very well-known hockey factory. 2015, 2016, you wind up at the beginning of the 2016 season with the Sioux Falls Stampede. What were your first impressions of the Herd organization?
Yeah, the year in Colorado I had was probably the most crucial year for my hockey career to date. I think that year with Coach Greg Vanover was tremendous, and he truly taught us, what it means to be a leader, what it means to be teamwork, and what it means to compete. And I think, I've never had a team that tight knit before until, I think that was just a really special team, and that was a lot to do with that head coach there. But when I first got kind of some sniff of junior hockey, and when I got drafted, even there was nothing on the radar really, and the draft came up, and I had hopes of getting drafted. But when I heard Sioux Falls come up, I immediately looked them up, and I was just blown away by the arena, and of course did some more research, and just couldn't have been a better spot.
So your one season in Sioux Falls, it wasn't the best season on the ice for you guys in terms of winning and losing, but you had 2 excellent goaltenders, obviously yourself and what you've done so far. Then you had Mikhail Baradin as your goaltending partner. He's obviously making a name for himself in the American Hockey League with the Winnipeg system. But for you, what was it like playing with another excellent goalie like Baradin? Because it wasn't necessarily a number 1 goalie. It was kind of a 1-2 punch there.
Yeah, and that was the first year I really had that split time and net. I obviously wanted to compete for that head spot for the whole time, but having him come in, I tipped my cap. He's a hell of a competitor, and he obviously had success in the league and now his career in the AHL and NHL. So having him to kind of bounce off of, and I think just having that constant demeanor of, fighting everything you can and competing as hard as you can to get playing time was a good thing for us.
Sioux Falls is a great town, good people up there. What do you remember about when you weren't at the rink, when you weren't working out with the Herd? What were some of the things that you and your maybe billet family or your friends got up to when you were away from the rink in Sioux Falls?
I think I had the luxury of going to high school in Sioux Falls. So I was a part of Roosevelt. We had like a five-person crew on the team. So we had a great camaraderie with the high school there, and we were always in the community hanging out with friends away from the rink. So I think that definitely gave us an advantage of getting in the community and meeting locals, and I loved it. I definitely consider Sioux Falls a second home for me, and the year I had there, it felt like I spent more than 2-3 years there. It's just I learned a lot about the Midwest, a little different than Alaska, and it's pretty cool.
A little flatter, huh?
Yeah, I had my first taste of pheasant. That was funny.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of food, top 2 restaurants in Sioux Falls, and you can't say Chipotle.
Oh, yeah. What is it? What's that restaurant called? Yeah, Minerva's. Yeah. See, I got my call-in button. Minerva's.
Phone a friend is gone. So
yeah. Minerva's was dynamite. Had a great salad bar. And that was downtown Sioux Falls. And then I guess kind of, our guilty pleasure was this place called Gilberto's. It was a late night Mexican place, open 24/7. So some of the boys would go there after a road trip and get a couple burritos.
On the rink for you, you had a great season there. You look at your numbers, despite, as Chris mentioned, the wins and losses column wasn't so great, but your numbers were sterling while you were there. Clearly it led to great success at Maine. For your game at that time, where did you think you needed the most work coming into the USHL?
I had the luxury of working with Coach Owens, who was a goalie his whole life, and he's had great success with recruiting, top-end goalies. So he knew what he was doing. He knew how to manage a practice around the goalie strengths and make sure we're working on things we need to work on. We also had a great goalie coach come in, Dave Rygalski, and he was a Midwest guy, and he was I think he worked with a couple teams around the league, but him and I developed a great relationship, and he really taught me the importance of my skating. I think he saw that I had a skill, a high-end skill in my skating abilities, and he really wanted to use it to my advantage. So going into it, I didn't know, certain things to work on, but he definitely simplified things for me, and I toned down and made sure I practiced them on a daily basis. So I wanted to improve my skating ability and then my mental game as well, because it's a good league and it's a lot of games. And managing, a high school workload on it too, making sure I'm doing homework and classes still, keeping up with everything was good for me and definitely prepared me to get to college and have success there.
Coach O just recently retired, one of the most celebrated USHL coaches this league has ever had. Do you have any great stories that come to mind when you think about Scott Owens?
Yeah, he was tremendous. I actually sent him a text congratulating him on a great career. It is pretty amazing what he did in his span, being at different levels and having success at each one. So I have only things, but I have a lot of good things to say about him. And, he was just great. He managed the team well, and I thought he was a great leader for us.
Fast forward to when you said you were going to go to Maine, or when you first got there, did you ever envision that your junior year you'd be named the nation's best goaltender?
It's funny because I was talking about that with my dad the other day, just having all these dreams, because dreams are big, and having goals to set are important. So, we were dreaming, we got to win the Hobey, you got to win the Richter. And it was in the back of my head, but at no point in time was it a priority, because I knew that the priority was to get wins and play well for the team I had in front of me. And so it was easy for me to really narrow down and focus in on playing the game at hand and not really focusing on accolades. But if I could think about it, no, I would have never thought I'd be in this position. And I think my goalie coach and coaches at UMaine really helped me shape that demeanor and helped us have success.
I just have two questions that I like to ask goalies. The first one I will ask you, Jeremy, is there a shooter at any level that you always think back on and think that guy always had my number?
Well, it's funny. My first ever USHL game was at the Fall Classic, and it was an exhibition game. And I was told about this Tolvanen kid. I was strictly told, watch out, he's going to go high. Like, he's going to go short side. And it was my first shot ever in the USHL, and he goes short side, bar down. So he had my number there, but it was funny. We played Sioux City a lot that year, and we always had some really close games, high intensity games. And I guess him and I ended up having a little rivalry, because I had a couple good saves on him, and he had a couple good goals on me. So that's a player that I'll definitely remember.
Secondly, goalies are oftentimes categorized as either extremely funny or extremely weird. Do you think you fall in either of those categories, and what do you think your teammates think?
Yeah. I definitely think I'm one of the more normal goalies, and I think a bunch of my teammates will vouch for that. But I probably have some weird traits, that they'll have no problem admitting. So it's a toss-up.
That's what they all say.
Yeah, everybody said normal that we've asked that to so far. Yeah. So we'll see.
Well, I'm pretty normal. We'll talk to the teammates and be like, that dude is the weirdest dude I've ever met in my life. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So you talked about dreams and goals, and obviously the NHL was probably on your radar playing hockey as a youngster. And when you got drafted by the Boston Bruins, what'd that mean to you? And did being in Maine make it that much more special, considering that, you're playing hockey in New England? I know you're not from New England, but that area is just Bruins crazy. And for you to get drafted to the Bruins while playing at Maine, that was probably pretty special. So what went into all that for you?
Yeah, I don't think it could have worked out better, in my opinion. And having support for being a Black Bear and then being a Bruin at the same time was just the cherry on top. So I knew that day was extremely special for me and my family. a lot of hard work went into it, and getting rewarded on draft day was a great honor. And now that it's coming to reality, just signing my first pro contract, I couldn't be more excited to join such a prestigious organization and with a great winning culture as well. So couldn't be more excited about that.
Lastly, for me, Jeremy, for the Sioux Falls fans, and there are some great Sioux Falls fans out there, it's quite a building to go visit and watch a hockey game in, that are listening to this podcast. Would you have any message for the people that once upon a time cheered loud and proud for Jeremy Swayman in goal?
Yeah, they are really special to us, and especially me. We didn't have a great year winning wise that year, but they always supported, and it just showed how much love and support they had for the team no matter what. And they always, had our backs. They were coming to away games, and I still keep in touch to quite a few families and fans to this day, and just continuing to get those, congratulatory texts and just checking in. It's a pretty special feeling, and I know that Sioux Falls is a special place for me.
Well, Jeremy, we really appreciate your time. It was a great to talk to you here, and we really, appreciate representing the USHL with such class and winning an award. 5 of the last 7 Mike Richter Award winners have come out of the USHL, and your name is now a part of that. So congratulations on that once again. Appreciate your time, and best of luck with the Boston Bruins organization going forward here.
I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
So lucky for you guys, not 1 but 2 interviews, and 2 great ones. USHL alums. Eventually, they're going to be in the NHL. They're both on the fast track to doing so with the Blues and the Bruins, and maybe even whenever we start back up, because they both officially signed NHL contracts. So they're enjoying that nice signing bonus from the comforts of their quarantined home at the moment. But still, nonetheless, we talked about it earlier, the impact the USHL has on the NCAA, and to get both of those awards, which most of the time those awards come out of the USHL. The anomaly last year of Cale Makar, who's a Western Canada guy, but still, if you go down the list over the years, it's just USHL guy after USHL guy, and it's another great thing for the USHL to take pride in.
And thinking about those interviews, and thankful to both Scotty as well as Jeremy for the time they spent out of their day chatting with us. The highlights for me were family-related stuff. Now, granted, I do have a stake in the game here with Scotty being family of mine, but you heard how much he talked about his dad, Jimmy, in that interview, and how clear of an impact that Jimmy's had. And I also loved what he said about, you see dads sometimes in sports be so overbearing on kids, and Jimmy never did that with Scotty. And you can't argue with the success, obviously, that the parenting Jimmy had on Scotty during his time growing up in Hibbing. And then the other cool part with Jeremy is we had his dad out in the room behind him listening to the interview while it was going on. And, you wonder if maybe his mom or if he had any siblings that were out there listening too. So you think about the kids and the players that win these awards, but you also think about the families during a time like this, and all that this means for these families, for getting up early and driving their kids to the rink in the morning, for helping them get through difficult times during their careers. So hats off to Jeremy and the Swayman family, as well as to Scotty and the Perunovich family.
And it was just funny to hear from Jeremy too about his path, right? He goes from Alaska high school hockey, then goes to the USHL. And then all of a sudden he chooses to go 4,556 miles away, literally the furthest possible school away from Alaska. And he goes to Maine. He didn't even get recruited right off the bat because he was a great goalie. He got recruited because they went to him and started talking about all the outdoor activities in Maine and how it feels like Alaska. It's just great to hear the background that you gave to Scott and to have Jeremy explain the background for him. So it's 2 great stories, right? It's not just, those normal average stories, great backgrounds that you don't normally hear. And those are always fun to hear and great stories to hear about. And so that's what makes those 2 awards that much more special. And when we see those 2 guys in the NHL, I know for you, when Scott makes his NHL debut, that'll be pretty special for you and your family. But for us as USHL guys, Jeremy and Scott, when they step onto the ice for the first time, it's going to mean a lot to all of us. And it's going to certainly mean a lot to the fan bases as well in the USHL.
No doubt a great episode this week, and already looking forward to next week's episode, Chris.
So this episode was our NCAA special edition for the U Show podcast. Our next one will be the USHL special edition award show. We'll break down all the awards in the USHL. We'll talk to some of the award winners. It's going to be a great episode as coming up soon, you'll see who has won all the USHL awards. And we did have our season cut short, but we played, 95% of the regular season. So these awards will certainly go to players that are well-deserving of these awards. And if you think about it, these could be your next NHL stars, because if you go back to the list and look at all the award winners from the past, most of these guys go on to have very lengthy NHL careers. So you don't want to miss this next one as we break down all the USHL awards and talk to even some of the winners.
Most of the time, you're right, Chris. Pretty indicative. Success at this level means success at future levels. So can't wait for who we've got in store next week. And I know the fans should be waiting just as on the edge of their seat as we are.
So for Scott and Jeremy, and for Ben Gisselson and Brent Meskey doing all the work behind the scenes, thanks for everybody for joining us. I'm Chris Treft, and this was the U Show Podcast.
This is the U Show Podcast.